Hello everyone, my name is Jessica and welcome to my channel or welcome back to my channel if you've been here before. So thanks to wherever I can put it on the screen, this lovely commenter, Paige Hanna, has dropped another video, and thank you to that commenter for letting me know because I didn't know. My feed was just, it's been so filled up with channels I don't watch anymore, so I unsubscribed a whole bunch so that I could actually, see the channels that I really want to see their information. Is it coincidental that she dropped this video the same day that I mention it? Could be. Maybe she watches my channel. She's watched my video before, about her at least. So who knows? It's probably just coincidental, or maybe the universe lined it all up. Who knows? But I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to react a little bit to her video. I did cut it down. Her video is about 31 minutes long. I will pin it in the comments so you can go watch it if you haven't watched it already. If you want to see everything, she doesn't cut out like pauses or anything like that because she's not a YouTuber. I cut out all the parts where she was repetitive or things that she's talked about before. So go back and watch all her old videos if you want to know what she talked about previously and like her little recaps and stuff. So let's get into it. I have some pretty strong opinions for what she shared in her video.
It's taken me a long time to even work up the desire to record another video. I don't want to do this. Can we just lay that out? It is hard to think back on my experience with Jodi. It is hard to reflect on my relationship and friendship with Ruby. It ended really abruptly. Sought a lot of counsel in the things that I share.
I think she's talking about her church. That's what my assumption is that.
It's very important to me that these are not scripted, that I allow the thoughts to flow, the words to flow the way they should. And if I'm headed down a path, a train of thought that I feel is not where I should be going, then I'm going to stop and shift. We had just finished a coaches retreat when we were getting ready to put all of these coaches out into their own field, where they would take on their own clients and they would begin teaching the way they felt was best.
So what she's referring to there is what I've talked about before, is that Jodi's connections business was like an MLM style. So I've also shared in past videos about people who had their own coaching companies, whether that was like postpartum fitness or something like that. And then they got the training from Jodi and connections and other coaches there, and then gained whatever knowledge and then trained their people in that. So it doesn't mean they were doing all of the connections principles, or like they didn't have necessarily like mental health fitness, but it was sort of like that. Like I mentioned, postpartum fitness, right? They wanted to teach core principles, so they used Jodi's program. So that's what she's referring to here.
That same weekend, Jodi had confided in me those dreams that she'd been having. We talked some more about them, and the severity and her distress. In the next few days, Johnny and I, my husband, received a phone call that Jodi needed help. And this phone call came from a person that I had never met before. I don't believe I'd ever even spoken to her on the phone. And she was a dear friend of Jodi's, living in a different country, thousands of miles away, who had known her for, I don't know, 20 or 30 years.
By the way, I have to stop for fair use, but I'm wondering if this is somebody who was like on a mission or something, if they were like so far away out of country, because remember on that Pam Botchter body cam footage, Pam had said she has people coming from Costa Rica. I wonder if it's that person.
This friend had Jodi on the line also and expressed how concerned she was that Jodi was not doing well. And my husband and I didn't understand what does that mean, not doing well. And she said, now Johnny and I had some experience previously with a very close relation who died, so immediately this tugged on our heart. This friend said she's really worried because Jodi lives alone and doesn't have a lot of close relations down where she lived. And the majority of the help she could seek and friends were up near where I lived.
And that would be like up where she lived, which is in Mapleton, is really close to Springville, which is where Ruby and Kevin lived at the time. So it's interesting. I mean, we know she is someone who keeps to herself and doesn't have any friends really. Obviously, Pam is her friend, but she chose living in the middle of, like, in this secluded kind of compound in St. George for a specific reason, you know? By the way, if I have to stop and then, like, settling changes, I might attend to my children.
We offered for her to come and stay with us. And she said no. Jodi said no. No, I can't put you out. No, I can't remember if in the last video I had said that she makes something your idea. If I didn't say it, I thought it, but that's because that's how she functioned. And so she said, no, I couldn't do that to you. And because of what we thought was the severity of the problem, we offered to meet her halfway. We said, okay, that's fine. We're just going to drive halfway. And if you're there, great. If you're not there, then you'll have made us drive the whole way for nothing, and then we won't be able to help you. So we drove halfway, met up with her, and ended up driving back to our home where.
Sorry, I have to stop. I wonder if, I think she said this happened in 2021, but I remember there was a retreat 2020, and I'm not sure if there was one in 2021. So I'm a timeline person, so that's why I'm curious about that. So maybe people comment below if you know exactly what time she's talking about, but I believe it's either 2020/2021.
She would stay. First of all, I was apprehensive. Jodi's a hard person to be around. I don't know if you've gathered that by now.
Yeah.
But she is a lot to handle, and I already knew that. I'm friends with her. I loved her for her great qualities, and was grateful for the small doses. So there was a lot of apprehension in the thought of her coming. I set that aside, thinking that this was a very loving, compassionate thing to do, compassionate, loving way to help. If you had said, go get this woman, she's going to be living with you for 6 weeks, I wouldn't have. That just wasn't even in my mindset. The nature of my home allows for a lot of space between people. So
what she's saying is she lives in a ginormous house that you can have people there and not have to interact with them all the time or be in close proximity. I'm not dissing that, but a lot of us obviously don't live in that type of housing.
Also at the time had a nanny helping many hours throughout the day. So
very lucky.
Thought there could be a lot of separation between helping Jodi and my kids being protected and helped. So
she doesn't get into this part at all, but she mentions her kids being protected, and I wonder, I suspect something involved her kids, or her kids saw something, because she mentions that, but then doesn't go into it later.
So it was late at night. We brought her to our home, and the next day, this friend from out of country said that she would be coming also. She would be flying in to help.
Then why did they have them
dear
help?
friend Jodi? There were also other friends of Jodi's aware of this situation, and friends of my own aware of this situation. So I felt like I had a lot of support around me.
And you didn't.
She was not able to alienate me and my husband the way she was with the Frankies, which, how could this happen? If I'm answering that question, that's one of the key things. We had a support system around us that was very dear to us, and maybe over time, maybe over months, she would have been able to weave her way and break those relationships, but she wasn't while she was here. I didn't think that I could actually help her. It's not like we brought her here because I thought that my husband and I were capable of taking on some and solving their problems for them.
They were manipulated. I believe Paige and Johnny were manipulated to take care of Jodi. Like I was interrupting before, is if this friend is coming in from out of country, I get that they thought that she was going to unalive herself, but if she was coming from out of country, and then she has, like, Jodi had Pam, you know, her business partner and like really good friend. So I think Paige and Johnny were manipulated, you know, help your coach who's changed your life and you have to help her. You know, that's what I believe. I really, really do believe that.
I thought we were a step in a much bigger process. I learned very quickly that she was unwilling to seek professional help. Her reasons for not seeking professional help were that they're just in distortion, that they don't understand, that they'll just medicate her and then she'll be a zombie and that'll take away her agency. So you can see how she already had her own like honest, responsible, humble narrative that she had to cling to, and that we understood. So when she said they won't allow me to live honestly because I'll be drugged, or they're not honest, or I mean she convoluted all of it to where I was like, then what?
If I'm being honest, I do not know what convoluted means. Like, I've heard it said so many times, I'll have to look it up. So don't think I'm an idiot. Sometimes some people don't know what words are, okay? And that's okay. But when people use words like that, my brain is like, I don't know. I just think it's interesting.
We do, then how do we help? I had sought help previously in an unconventional way from somebody who does, I don't know, I'd say energy work, but it's a mix of so many different modes of healing. And it had been very beneficial to me. This woman had helped me understand that a lot of the answers to my problems I can find through my subconscious. And if I am asking my higher power for assistance, my subconscious can provide the means to heal.
So, okay, that's interesting she mentions that. Like, I believe that maybe she could be as easily manipulated, like I said before, but the thing that she mentioned about your conscience, your subconscious giving you the answer. I was raised Christian, like Pentecostal Christian, and oftentimes people would say like God spoke to them, and I don't know what I believe about that anymore, to be honest, but I often think it's people's subconscious speaking to them, because a lot of people would be like, they use God as their thing, like Sam and Nia, for example. I'm doing a video on those people. I've been working on it for like almost a month, but people like to use, I feel like, God as their answer. She didn't say God, she always says higher power, but that your subconscious, that's very interesting. I feel like that's really revealing what she just said for like religion manipulation. I don't know.
The answers. So we decided to go down that route. That's the one Jodi was open with. I recognize now she was open because she thought it was a system she could manipulate. At the time, I had full hope that she would be able to understand what she was going through and why. This is where some of her teachings came into play for me. One of the ones that she had explained most, no, sorry, she didn't explain most. Truth and Distortion is what she hit on most. One of the things that she taught briefly that I really clung to was the concept of denial. If you were unwilling to look at your pain, then you would utilize denial. And there's all these tactics of denial. There's all these tactics of avoidance to look at your pain. And when I understood those, and I saw this long list of avoidance tactics, I could see myself using so many of them. I actually have a list, and I'm going to pull it up.
By the way, this list she's about to read is from the Connections like workbook and stuff. I shared another video, I think the first video or the other one I covered of one of her videos of this book, and all of this that she says, I recognize every single one of them is all from that book. So I don't know if she believes it today. Like, it seems like she does, but yeah, I mean, you can't get certain stuff out of your head, obviously, if it's been ingrained for years.
Because this is key to understanding how I saw Jodi clearly. Avoiding in itself is a tactic to not look at your pain. Blaming somebody else, compartmentalizing, comparing, creating distractions, entitlement, exaggeration, either or thinking, which is black and white thinking, which many people within Connections were very good at black and white thinking. feeling helpless or hopeless, intellectualizing, justifying your behavior, minimizing your behavior, storytelling, manipulating, omitting information, rationalizing, thinking you're unique or different, and thinking you're a victim. So
I think a lot of those things can be good though, in a way, you know? Like, I mean, there is some gray area. There's not just black and white thinking, but I don't know. It seems like they really want people who just lack any sort of confidence. And like I already said a couple of times, can be easily manipulated. And like they're really good at like using overarching terms and like buzzwords and it sounds good to say all these words, you know, but when you get to the meat of it is like, and you unpack everything, it doesn't make sense. My opinion is it does not make sense.
first, it's really easy to think of all these forms of denial and to think, oh, other people are utilizing them. And so I was guilty of that. I thought like, oh, I can tell when my husband's in pain because he's rationalizing or he's intellectualizing, or I can tell if my kids are in pain because they're trying to manipulate or they're omitting information. And so while it could have been a weapon, I just saw it as information. Oh,
That's good. I mean, that's good. It shows she has some critical thinking.
I can understand people better if I know these things. And then it evolved into I can understand myself once I recognize I minimize my emotions regularly. I over intellectualize. I justify things. I feel entitled. So I started reflecting on my own behavior. And as I did that, I ultimately saw that I was in a great amount of pain, suppressed pain. And so then I started asking myself, what am I not looking at? Why do I have limited memories from certain years of my life? Why?
So that thing is interesting. She's saying about the limited memories. I've been seeing stuff on TikTok about why you have limited memories of your childhood or, you know, any time in your life really. It's because it's like a trauma response with your brain that you're not going to remember certain traumatic events because your brain doesn't want to remember them. And yes, of course, we can remember really awful times in our lives, but it's actually like I want to say like a coping mechanism our brains do, but it could be, it's like something just to protect ourselves that our brain just naturally does.
Um, why is this resonating so deeply with me? This concept of denial.
It's resonating because it makes sense. It's simple teachings that Jodi has made it seem like she's godlike and has discovered something fresh and new when it isn't. It's just getting people who have not sought therapy at all, or I feel like really had any self evaluation in their lives. This is just my opinion, obviously.
In denial. So I spent a lot of time studying it. And so much to where in the past, I would have had that entire list memorized. And throughout the day, I would have been able to watch myself move in and out of those different places of denial. That training was so integral to my experience with Jodi and her decline mentally. As we worked, and I say we because I was a part of some of those sessions at her request, Jodi's request, I started seeing the amount of pain that Jodi had been bearing. She had already confided certain things in me. And so when she was discussing with this healer, I could hear she was omitting information. I could hear that she was telling a story one way when I recall it happening a different way.
Not shocking.
So I could see she was manipulating the situation. And this was back then. And I could hear that she was not living what it was she would tell others to do. So she was the exception to the rules, the exception to her teaching.
Aren't like a lot of master manipulators like that? I mean, good for Paige for noticing that, I guess. Like she has some ability to self evaluate.
Somebody lives as the exception to their own teachings or to the laws of the land or to the laws of God. It's the evidence of the highest amount of pain. When I witnessed
Okay. That is is the part that freaking pisses me off. Sorry, but not sorry. If they're in denial, they have the highest level of pain. If maybe she's speaking from experience and this is why she says this, but as you'll start to see, she starts to feel bad for Jodi and then cries and then cuts off the video. And this is the part where like Paige lost me. I'm just like, I was like pretty open-minded the whole video. And then I saw this part. I'm like, she's like building a case for Jodi being so wounded. But if this happened like 2020, 2021, we know what Jodi did to just Jesse and to Adam and to whoever else who hasn't come forward, you know? So I know people can be a victim and an aggressor at the same time, but I don't have any sort of thing for Jodi. If this was like a long time ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, maybe, but she was so set in her ways. She knew the manipulation tactics. Like she just had everything down to a T. And I do not believe that denial meant that she was in so much pain. That's BS. I think she was tormented by her lies and then everything caught up with her. And maybe if you believe in the devil, maybe she was possessed. Who knows? But Paige goes on to share something else.
Her doing that, I started understanding the depths of what pain she must have come through. And as I sat in some of those sessions, I was awoken to what real pain and suffering is. And because
Jodi's is self-inflicted. Self-inflicted, okay? We know what she ended up doing to Ruby Frankie's children. If Jodi feels pain, it's self-inflicted.
Because of this pain that I was beginning to understand, I felt immense compassion and an even stronger desire to help.
Did any of these people do like any sort of background look on who Jodi was? Like the stuff came out about her sharing about a couple's pee use, and that was Adam and then whoever else she did this to. Like if you looked up and saw that your coach had a license suspended, that's a pretty big red flag. Like I've shared this before, do your due diligence and really look into somebody before you get into business with them, have them coach you, whatever it is. You have to do your background work on people. It's very important.
We witnessed self-harm, self-mutilation, starving, binging.
Okay, sorry if this comes across as rude, but again, also not sorry because of what she did to RF, EF, and the other children if she did something to them as well. Starving and binging. Okay, Jodi does not appear to be someone who has looked like she's ever starved a day in her life. Binging, I believe. Starving, no. Maybe her Paige's version of starving is didn't eat for half a day. I don't know.
It was made known to me that previously in Jodi's life, she had been diagnosed with schizophrenia.
Ding ding.
Or I know there's another one, dissociative identity disorder, and was something that she thought she had managed. The teachings that I was getting through Connections were a Band-Aid, that a lot of therapy is a Band-Aid.
Okay, and that's another point where Paige freaking lost me. Therapy is not a Band-Aid. As long as you apply yourself, you do self-evaluation, like I've said a lot in this video, self-evaluation. If you don't have that ability, therapy won't be helpful to you. But if you have the ability to see your wrongs, therapy is very important, very helpful. Therapy is not a Band-Aid if you do the freaking work. Paige, you got this wrong. You have it wrong. That's just my opinion. You do.
There was a great support system here. She had very close friends who were with her and were understanding these same things, who knew of her past, who knew and had done a good job of hiding.
Yeah, you think? All the freaking crazy shit that Jodi did, they knew and they allowed you guys to take her in. That's so messed up. So messed up.
Allowing her to live in this state of denial. And I had approached Jodi and said, you need a support system. We need to tell others about this. And there were some couples that were very close to us that I said, we need to call them and we need to explain to them what's happening. And every time I had suggested a greater intervention of telling more people I was met with, no, because then the voices in my head will get worse, and then I will this, which would end in suicide.
And by the way, the more that she's talking about is not therapy. Clearly, she said therapy's Band-Aid. So who are they talking about? The church getting involved?
She had even asked when she came into my home if I would take her car keys, because if she had access to them, then in the middle of the night, she would drive away and cause an accident on the highway. I see.
And then hopefully that accident would have been driving into a wall and then not ended up hurting children severely. Sorry, I sound bitter, and everyone should be bitter about Jodi.
How, because of me following and believing those things, she could then go to the Frankies after me and say she was kidnapped. I told you she would tell 90% truth with a 10% lie. She would say something to the effect of, she took my car keys, she wouldn't let me go anywhere, she would lock the doors, and all of that is true. But I did it because she told me to. I think I need to leave it here because I'm upset. And I hope what I said made sense. Because remember, I'm answering the question, how could this happen? And it's not just how could this happen to the Frankie children, but how could Jodi get to this place? Thanks for your time.
Okay, so like I said already, Paige had me up until that point, and 3/4, maybe just over half of the video, I thought this is a good video, It's kind of boring, kind of falling asleep, but it's decently good video sharing some information. But then she went off into, how to get there, how to, with the Frankie children. And what she said before that is that, like painting Jodi as some victim, and she was really hurt. And this is why she became who she became. So she didn't share much in this video. She shared a little bit. She got cut off because she got emotional, which obviously that's a smart move to make, to cut it off. But I wonder what else she's going to share. Like, how did she get to this point? I think she shared enough about, getting to the point, because she's trying to share that Jodi's just a hurt person, and I know she's not trying to minimize it. But to me, it came across as minimization, as like, here's the excuse. And I know excuse and reason, like a reason is different than an excuse, but to me, it's coming across as more excuse than reason. That's my opinion. Does it make a fact? No, it's just my opinion. But like I shared before, I'm clearly a commentary channel, so I have to, interject and give my opinion. And I've linked the video before, or I've linked the video in the pinned comment, so you can go watch the whole thing without any interruptions. Because some people get confused. On my other one, people were like, oh, what a waste of 40 minutes. It's like, okay, well, that's your fault for not reading a pinned comment. That's your fault for clicking on a commentary channel who obviously can't just play a video straight, because that's not fair use, just like no one can play my videos straight. They always do it with commentary because that would go against fair use. That's the rules of YouTube. So anyways, yeah, I just felt like the reason I honestly really want to cover this was because of me mentioning my video today that she probably wasn't going to do it, and clearly she did. So I wonder if she even got contacted for the documentary. Who knows? But yeah, I don't know. I feel like the video is basically like a nothing burger, but then it kind of sheds some light on, I think, Paige. Hopefully she's done healing to get out of that manipulation mindset. But again, she said therapy's Band-Aid. So I don't think that's cool. Maybe the Mormon church, maybe they believe just getting therapy within the church, which is why Jodi was on the recommended list, and who knows what's going to happen there. So my next video is going to be a massive Sam and Nia video. I've done a crazy research and deep dive and sharing information, and I started this like literally right when the documentary came out. So I have a video that they've since deleted and no one has, except for on TikTok. So people are sharing like little snippets of the TikTok, but I have the whole video. I'm so happy I looked into it from the very beginning. And then I am going to be doing a Noah Pressgrove update video, but that one is so insane. There's just so much crap happening in the Facebook group, and it's really hard to keep track of. It's like a full-time job to do, and I don't have the time to keep up on everything right now. So yeah, we'll see what I have time for. Mom with 2 young kids, you guys know how it is. It's 12:08 a.m. and I'm filming this video. I'm watching my kids on the monitor, constantly making sure that they are okay. So I hope you guys have had a great weekend, and thank you so much for being here. And yeah, bye guys.